I know you've talked about it, but what are some storylines that you want that we should pay attention to in training camp, do you think?
Yeah, I got a story coming out, on Friday, kind of a training camp primer, but things I'm going to be looking for that I think are going to, you know, questions that we've seen in the off season, but this is really the beginning, and it starts with Deshaun Watson. For him, he needs to get back to the player that the Browns thought they were getting when they made the big trade and the big contract. He hasn't, there's been no indication that he isn't going to be, back to that level of play. But until he actually does it in games, there's going to be a question. That period is the next step. You've had the off season, you had the OTAs, you had the mini camp. Everything's been looking good. Now this is the next step, training camp. So that'll be, where it starts. And then on the defensive side, I think that Jim Schwartz, the factor that he brings to the team, I've said overall, this might have been the biggest move the Browns have made this offseason. They brought in a lot of great players, but I do think Jim Schwartz can really set the tone on the defense, and that starts here in training camp. We saw a lot of it a little bit in the offseason, but I do think that I'm anxious to see, what he does with the group and sets the tone. And there's other storylines, the linebackers, that they didn't do a lot with the linebacker position. And you have five linebackers that are on the roster that ended the year on injury reserve last year, headed by Anthony Walker and Sion Takitaki. We didn't see any of them really other than on the sideline in the offseason, even in the mini camp. The other guys were all practicing. So it'll be interesting. Will one or both of them start from day one, or will they start on the physically unable to perform list? Because the Browns are counting on particularly Walker. He was, they brought him back on a 1 year deal. He was the captain, he was the leader of the defense, and they kind of fell apart when he went down. So I think he's a big part of this, and it needs to be a storyline. Where's he at physically? Other ones, the return game, who's going to be the backup running back, defensive line. Now that Perry and Winfrey's gone, are they going to bring in another defensive tackle, or are they going to go with what they have? So there's a lot of different storylines. The speed at wide receiver, how does it translate on the field? So a lot of different things that you can zero in on. We're going to try to cover all that as we're down there every day.